right, we're on. Buenos días.
Good morning.
Bienvenidos a la Congregación Unitariana Universalista de Asheville.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville.
I'm Reverend Claudia Jimenez, and I serve this congregation joyfully as Minister of Faith Development. Soy la ministra de Desarrollo de Fe.
I'm Kim Collins, and I serve this congregation as religious educator. Soy la educadora de religión.
Yes. Pronto todos van a estar hablando español. Pretty soon all of you will be speaking Spanish. Queremos que sepan que
We want you to know that
quien quiera que sea,
whoever you are,
de donde quiera que venga,
wherever you come from,
a quien quiera que ame,
whoever you love,
estés donde estés, en el viaje de explorar quién eres,
you are valuable and worthy of love.
eres valioso y digne de amor. Eres bienvenida aquí.
You are welcome here. Today we honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and reflect on what we are called to do to keep his dream for justice alive. Our service is for all ages, an opportunity to acknowledge and welcome the presence of our children and youth in service today. If you are visiting online, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat and tell us from where you are watching. We are glad you're here.
And we'd like to give a special welcome and thank you to our choir who is joining us today, our music director, Les Downs, and our AV team, Steve Carter and Jason Smith. This is truly a team effort this morning. Now let us prepare for worship with today's centering music.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Susan McGinn. You are not alone, dear one. You are among all those who have walked this straining path before. You are not alone. You are with the wisdom of all your ancestors who live, if nowhere else, in the cells of your body and breath, remembering you from the very beginning. You are not alone. You are with us. We are right there, smiling and shining upon you like starlight, holding and surrounding you in silence and song, forever renewing our faith in you.
Our call to worship this morning is a 3 breaths exercise, inviting us to center for our time together. So take a moment and sit with your feet flat on the floor, your hands in your palms facing up. If you're up front, you can lie down if that is more comfortable. Close your eyes or lower your gaze and just listen to the sounds in this room. Listen for any sounds outside this room. And take a few deep breaths and listen to any sounds inside your body. Take 1 deep breath in, and when you breathe out, let go of the stuff you bring into this space. It will be there when we are done. Take a few normal breaths. Take a 2nd deep breath, and when you breathe out, create a still, quiet space inside your mind. Take normal breaths. Feel your body in its stillness like a tree or a rock. Feel your feet as roots into the earth. And now take a 3rd deep breath, and when you breathe out, feel the energy of your body and mind. You are ready for whatever is next. Feel your heartbeat. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Welcome. Bienvenidos. We are glad you are here this morning. Let us worship together. And this morning we begin with song. We're going to be singing Enter, Rejoice, and Come in English and in Spanish. So we're going to quickly go over the Spanish lyrics before we sing. So I will say the phrase, and I invite you to say it back to me. Ven, ven, alégrate hoy. Es hoy un día muy feliz. What did I tell you? You were all going to be speaking Spanish. And our next stanza is Ven abierto el corazón. Perfecto. Wonderful. Let us rise in body and spirit and sing together. thank you. Thank you for singing. Thank you for clapping. And thank you for feeling this in your bodies, because when we gather and we worship, it should be our whole self, not just our intellects, but our hearts and our souls and our very being. So today, on this day, before the Martin Luther King rally tomorrow, I have a wisdom story to share that was written by his sister. And the title of the story is My Brother Martin, A Sister Remembers Growing Up with Martin Luther King. And it's written by Christine King Farris, and the illustrations are by Chris Sonpier. She writes, Martin and I were born in the same room in our mom's parents' house. Our grandma's sister, Aunt Ida, lived with us. How many of you have a grandma or an aunt living with you? We don't, some of us do. Not long after my brother Martin was born, we welcomed our brother Alfred Daniel, or AD, and he was born in the same room. Martin was called ML because Dad had the same name. They called me Christine. Like 3 peas in a pod, we grew up together. Our dad was an important minister, and our mom an accomplished musician. Work took them away from home, so guess who took care of the kids? Grandma and Aunt Ida. My brothers and I had each other, and we were almost always up to something. Our best prank involved a fur piece that belonged to Grandma. Then there was the time, hoping to avoid piano class, sorry Les, so they could play outside, AD and ML loosened the legs of the piano bench. No one is going to do that here. No, 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 no. But mostly, we were good, obedient children. ML did learn to play a few songs on the piano. Given his love for music and singing, he could have become a musician like Mom had his life not called him on a different path. We grew up at a time when our country had unfair laws allowing Black people to be kept separate from white people. We grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and my parents tried to protect us by keeping us close to home. When we were young, all the children in our neighborhood played together and explored the neighborhood together. The thought of not playing together because of our skin color never entered our minds. But one day, the cruelty and injustice that our parents tried to protect us from broke through. ML and AD went to get their playmates across the street, as they had so many times before. But what do you think happened? They came home alone because their friends told my brothers that they could not play with them because they were Negroes. Mom did her best to explain the reason behind it all, and she gave us hope. When ML asked, "Why do white people treat colored people so mean?" she said, "Because they just don't understand that everyone is the same. But someday, it will be better." And I will never forget what ML said. He said, "One day, Mom, I'm going to turn this world upside down." As we grew up in this cruel system of segregation, our father shared stories with the congregation and during dinner about how he confronted hate. Years later, ML did not forget the lessons he learned from our father and the promise he made to our mother. And when he was much older, My brother dreamed a dream that turned the world upside down. And today, that struggle continues. And Martin Luther King's story reminds us that we can move together against injustice and work to make our community more loving and inclusive. That is our wisdom story this morning.
Okay, is this mic on? Can you hear me? All right, so as you guys know, I love to make everyone stand up and move around during the service. So we're going to do that right now. So we're going to do, this is our centering, and our centering this morning is going to be a body prayer by Annie Scott. So if you want to please rise, embody your spirit, and join me in the hand motions, and we're going to do this 3 times. So let's get loosened up. Maybe bend your knees a little bit. Let me just get them. Okay. All right, we're ready. Please join me for a body prayer of caring. We bring our hands over our hearts to express respect for ourselves. We expand our hands into a small circle to express respect for others. And we expand our hands out wide to express our respect for our church. So we're going to do 2 more times. So we bring our hands over our hearts. Think about it. You're going to respect yourself, right? Have you been disrespecting yourself a little bit lately, maybe? Okay, so we're just going to respect ourselves today. We're going to expand our hands into a small circle. Some of us have bigger circles, just depends. And express our respect for others. And then we're going to expand our hands out wide to express our respect for this church and for this community that we have here together. Right? All right, 1 more time. We bring our hands over our hearts to express respect for ourselves. We expand our hands into a small circle to express respect for others. And we expand our hands out wide to express our respect for our church.
Thank you, Kim. And as we spread our hands out wide to express respect for our church, we also express our hands out wide with love for this community. And because there is love for this community, we have a ritual every Sunday where we come forward and we light a candle for any joy or sorrow in our hearts that is witnessed by each and every person here. So I invite you, as you feel comfortable and as you are able, to come forward to light a candle for a joy or sorrow. And if you are unable to come forward, please raise your hand and Kim or I will place a candle in the bowl for you. Let our ritual begin. If you have lit a candle for a joy that you bring in your heart today, know that this community celebrates with you. If you bring a sorrow, know that we hold you in love and care. And Kim will light a final candle for those in our community who are online or are not with us today.
Okay. Thanks to my trusty assistant over here. Whoops, let's put this on the right way. Okay, well, I've got this box here, and I don't know what's in the box. Do you guys want to find out what's in the box? Anybody want to open it? Okay, she's nodding first, so I'm going to have her open it. There might be one of the, let's see. I think you can, okay. Oh, what is that? Let me see what that is. Oh, it's the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism. What a strange thing to find in this box. Oh, and I don't have my script. Okay, so I'm just going to wing it. Is anybody a really strong reader and wants to give this a try? It's lots of words. Okay, so you're going to do this. Will's going to hold the mic for you.
The member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association convent to affirm the promote.
Do you want me to take over? I can take over.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of it's pretty wordy. So we're gonna break it down a little bit. Good job. Good job. So I'm gonna read it over again, and also the text is up there on the slide. So we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Boy, that's a lot of words. Okay, they're big words. I'm going to start with asking, does anybody know? So the 8th principle is not a principle yet, right? Because we only have 7, right? Last time I checked, we've only got 7 principles up on the wall. So this is a new one. So I'm just going to tell you guys the way that this works, and then we're going to talk about some of those words. So we have our 7 principles, and we voted on those back in the 80s. So the modern version of the 7 principles that you know have been in existence since the 1980s. So it's been a while, right, since we've added to them, but our faith is a living tradition. Does anybody know what that means? Does anybody know what it means to be a living tradition, or have any ideas about that? That's okay. So it means that we are always looking at how can we make this better, right? Like, what other things can we be doing to make the world better? So several years ago, some folks decided maybe we need another principle, right? Like, maybe we've got the 7 principles and we use those and those are good, but maybe we can use another one that says some action words, right? It says some like, what are we going to do to make this beloved community happen? So we're going to work to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions. But I'm going to go back up to the top where it says covenant. Does anybody know what covenant means? Any of you guys? No? Okay. Anybody? How about anybody like over here, grown-ups? Is it a promise? It's a promise, right? So that's what that word means. It's our covenant. When we covenant together, that means that we're making promises together about how we're going to be together, right? So every year in RE, at the beginning of the year, each RE class creates their own covenant, right? So we have those covenants. What are some other covenants that we've got? Does anybody know? Anybody else know? Jen, what are some other? We have a staff covenant here. The staff here has an agreement about how we're going to be together. What else? Anybody? Is there a congregation? We have a congregational covenant. Did you guys know that? We have a whole covenant about how we're going to be together. It's something that we should be looking at and making sure that we still agree with it. So the covenant part is the really important part, right? That's the part where we promise. Does anybody know, can anybody tell me any of the other 7 principles? It's a trick question. You can't leave until you answer. If I don't know the answer, right? So I've been a UU for like 35 years, and I can't tell you all of them. But I can tell you some of them. And so the first one, does anybody know what the first one is? That's the one. Oh, yeah, see, you're cheating. Okay. There's cheat sheets up here. So the first one, what does that say? What does the first one say? It says each person is important, right? So how do we get from each person is important to dismantling systems of oppression? What do you think?
That, then you can go to... Ugh, I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay, it happens to the best of us, especially when you're talking in front of people. So the first one is the hardest one, though, right? That's the hardest one for me, is that we word it a little bit differently, is that each person has inherent worth and dignity, right? So everybody that you meet, and I will tell you, as a professional UU, that is the one that I have the hardest time with. And so I struggle. But we needed to figure out a way. We need to do some actions, right? So we got to get from each person is inherently has inherent worth, and each person is important to how are we showing up for everybody, right? So how are we showing up? So that's what the 8th principle is basically about. Like, to just distill it down really briefly, is that it's about how are we going to do that action, right? How are we going to make sure that we are expressing that each person is important and has inherent worth? So, yeah, so that's basically what's going on with the 8th principle, and we are having all sorts of discussions about it. The UUA wants to hear from folks about it, so please tune into that discussion. Do you want? I can't. Is this flower for me? I'll take it. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time this morning, my friends. And if you have any ideas about any other principles that you think that we should add, I would love to hear about it. You can come talk to me after the service about it, okay? There's nothing in there, and we took the thing out. Oh, there's more. There's pineapples in there now. How did that happen?
I think it's appropriate for us to follow that with the song we're about to sing. It's a fun song that we want to sing for you, and maybe later on in the service we'll sing it again and let you sing along with us, maybe.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Oh, one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know that you're scared, and I'm scared too. But here I am, yes, right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Oh, one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Oh, one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love.
Thank you. Thank you, choir. Thank you, Les. Because today, when we think about the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, we know that he called us to lead with love. And it wasn't an easy love. It was a challenging love that called us to love those that are not like us, to love those that think differently, because those differences are not to be divisions among ourselves, because love is greater. It's a love of goodwill. That action that we are called to do in our lives is about leading with love, at home, at work, in school, wherever we are. It's love that allows us to stay firm, and it's not easy work. So today, this morning, you heard a story that I always find endearing because it humanizes a remarkable person who has been put on a pedestal and sometimes flattened into one story that identifies him only as a dreamer. When in fact, he was not just a dreamer, he was an intellectual. He was a husband, a father, an organizer, a revolutionary activist, partnering with others, not working alone, partnering with others for economic justice and voting rights and against racism and militarism expressed in the gruesome and unjust war in Vietnam during his time. His commitment to justice, as we all know, ultimately cost him his life. So this morning, let us remember him as the complex person he was, recognizing that when he was alive, our government did not support his revolutionary work. A day off for Martin Luther King's birthday was simply unimaginable. And yet, here we are. Tomorrow, and it shouldn't just be tomorrow, it should be always that we remember his message and that we act with love. And this morning, in his memory, I want to go back to the time when he visited North Carolina, because he did come here many times in the 50s and 60s, but there were 2 trips that he made to Montreat up in Black Mountain. How many of you are aware of those visits that he made? Some of you are aware. So the first one happened in 1964. And at that time, Dr. King and his partners, because remember, we don't do this work alone, his partners in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference flew into Asheville Airport and drove to the Montreat Conference Center near Black Mountain to regroup and to plan for 1964, because it was going to be a big year. And so a little history. A few months earlier, not Martin Luther King, President Kennedy had been assassinated. And that was a year when there was going to be an election. And that was a year when President Lyndon B. Johnson was saying that he was going to move forward legislation that was going to treat our black siblings the way that they inherently deserved to be treated. Because it is no one, much less a white person's right, to give another their rights. Those are rights that they had. And so there was an opportunity for change. And Martin Luther King was working for that change. And even though his life was threatened, he kept doing the work. And ironically, when he went to Asheville that first year, even though there wasn't a lot of publicity, the FBI was working to protect him while at the same time they were spying at him or spying on him. But he was there. There isn't a lot of record of the work that happened during that time because there was fear of infiltration from the FBI. But one of the things that really stood out for me as I was revisiting this story was a quote from an attendee, Reverend C.T. Vivian. And this is what he said: "There was still some relaxing times and fun and jokes. We took breaks and played softball, ping pong, cards, and Martin just seemed to let a lot of steam off." Can you imagine Martin Luther King playing ping pong and cards and joking with his partners? Don't we sometimes need to let off steam? And so in our story this morning, we saw the playful side of King as a child. And I just smiled knowing that as an adult, despite the threats, despite the fear, despite the anxiety, he also made time for joy and for play. And so I remind us, as we do whatever work we are called to do in the area of justice, that it's hard work, it's scary work, and we also need time for joy and play and celebration with our partners. Now, the second visit was a year and a half later, and again he returned to Montreat, and this time he was there for the Presbyterian Church's annual conference, somewhat like our General Assembly, and his arrival was delayed because he decided to visit the Watts neighborhood in Los Angeles after the riots. And when he was there, he said something that, if you close your eyes and bring it to today, is just as relevant. And he said and pointed out that the problems that led to the riot were not rooted in a racial difference, but in environmental problems. Environmental problems of economic deprivation, of social isolation, of inadequate housing, and general despair of thousands of Negroes living in ghettos that are the ready seeds which give birth to tragic expressions of violence. Anyone under those circumstances, whatever their skin color, whatever their ideas or whatever identity we want to impose upon them, any human being would react to that kind of cruelty and lack of respect. So it was not a racial fault of anyone. It was created by an injustice in a society that believed that whiteness was better and white people were better than everybody else. So Dr. King spoke truth to power, And so he was going to go back to Montreat, and there was a lot of opposition to his visit, especially after everything he said in Los Angeles. And in that speech at Montreat, which I invite you, if you're curious, if you Google it, it's online in 4 parts, and it is a powerful speech. It's an hour long, and it is a super powerful speech. And one of the things that he says in that speech, he's talking to a religious community, and he talked about the responsibility of the church to be the moral guardian of the community. And if they are the moral guardian, it is their responsibility, their moral responsibility, to speak up against injustice. And King was frustrated with the failure of the religious community to act. And friends, even though today there have been some changes, there is still a lot of work for the church to do. And listen to what he said, because I think what he said then is still relevant today. He said, people of faith have an obligation to speak up for racial justice. But we must admit that all too often the church has been lax at this point. All too often, in the midst of social evil, too many have somehow stood still only to mouth pious irrelevancies and sanctimonious trivialities. All too often, in the midst of racial injustice, King said, too many have remained silent behind the safe security of stained glass windows or regular windows. Friends, we've made progress, but if we look deep in our hearts, are we any different today in doing that work, speaking up for that work in community, given what is happening in our countries today? 58 years later, this call that he made for faith in action is relevant. And he calls for a faith that heeds his admonition that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That my liberation is tied to yours. And what we mean by liberation is that I decolonize myself from white supremacy culture. You each figure out what you need to do around your own white supremacy culture. And then we don't liberate anybody, right? We work with our partners for fair policies, for justice, for liberation. So that's what liberation is about. It's doing my work and working with people in the community, often people of the global majority who know what they need. I am not the one, the white person is not the one to tell them what they need. So that's what I mean by liberation. We're not liberating anyone, we're liberating ourselves, and then we work together so that we are all free to live to our potential, because so many have been denied that for so long. So it's not an oppression Olympics, right? It's we all do our work, because this is an intersectional issue. So in closing, on this day when we honor Dr. King's legacy, the questions remain. What are we each doing in partnership with others to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice? How are we doing this at home, in school, at work, in church? Tomorrow there is a rally, and I hope that there is a lot of participation, and I caution us that marching in solidarity for our black siblings and those that are oppressed on King's birthday is performative if we are not doing the work. If we have Black Lives Matter bracelets and signs and t-shirts, it is performative if we are not doing the work. And we each know in our hearts where we are at. Some of us are beginning the work, some of us have been doing the work, some of us have no idea how to begin, and that's okay, because we come at this from so many different places. So I invite you to set an intention to explore your role in co-creating beloved community, a community free from racism and oppression. We are called to use our gifts and our privilege to be part of co-creating beloved community. Sometimes I get impatient when I hear white people saying, "Oh my God, I'm the problem." No, use your privilege. Use your privilege because you have it. Recognize, yes, all that history, yes, white supremacy is the problem, and you have all these privileges that you did not earn, but you have the privilege. You recognize the history, and you have agency to use that privilege for change and good. It's easier to walk away and say, "Nah, I can't do anything because that's my original sin, I'm white." That is not. That is not. We can all. I, as a Latina, have my own work to do. So I'm not speaking here with any monopoly on any knowledge. I am just inviting us to think, where are we and what can we do? And as Kim said earlier, covenanting is one of the ways that we begin that work. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves, when we make these promises to each other and we mess up, because we will mess up, do we have the skills that we need to figure out how to get back in relationship? So sometimes we need to acknowledge that just saying that we covenant requires that we talk about how do we recovenant. And maybe that's something that we can be working on as a congregation and in our program, so that we develop that skill, that muscle, to know how to come back into relationship when we miss the boat. Because, my friends, you do not have to be perfect to do this work. You are going to mess up. I am going to mess up. But what matters is that I have humility and curiosity to say, yes, I misspoke. Yes, I did this and it was hurtful to you. Let us have a conversation. How do we get back into relationship? Because that's another thing I often hear. I have to get this right so I don't go out there and do harm. Well, you're never going to get it right. And if you're waiting for perfection, you're never going to go out there and be in relationship and learn from those mistakes. So please, let's think about that. Reflect on your journey towards liberation. Where are you at? What are the highlights? What are the challenges? If this is new, how can this congregation support you? Who are your allies with whom you can be vulnerable with and that can hold you accountable? Because that's also really important. But the most important thing is, what will you do? What are the actions? You know, like the 8th principle is the one principle that really calls us to action. What are the actions that you will be willing to do? So, take risks, lead with love, move beyond your comfort zone, be curious, center goodwill, know that it's lifelong work, and trust that together we can co-create beloved community where all thrive, every single one of us. May it be so, my friends. And so with that in mind, let us sing together because we are working to build a new way. Let's own it.
So first, we want to invite any visitors that we have with us this morning to stand up and introduce yourself if you want to. And we've got some folks with mics that will pass them around, and we would love to hear where you're visiting us from. Does anybody want to? Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Kathy Foster, and I'm Kim's mother-in-law, and I'm here to visit him and her and my son, whose birthday is tomorrow.
He's going to be 50. Welcome. All right, welcome. No, that mic is not on. Yeah. We want to be able to hear you.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Debolo, and I'm here with my good friend Mary, who invited me. I do live in Asheville. I am local, but today's my birthday, so I too have a dream.
Happy birthday! Welcome.
Hi, good morning. My name's Anthony. I'm a UU music director out in Los Angeles, just visiting, and my family's come up from Tennessee, so it's great to meet all y'all.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Robert. I'm visiting from Montford. Thanks for having me all. This is great.
Welcome. Okay, anybody else? All right, so now we're going to do the work of the congregation. So as you were able to see if you were here a little early, our announcements run at slides. Oh, is this mic not on? Hello, hi. Okay, sorry, I took the lav mic off. Our announcements run as slides at the beginning of the service. If you miss them, you can refer to Thursday's weekly e-news, as everything is described in there. That is the best way to find out what's going on, is to read the e-news. Our community plate recipient this month is the UU Asheville Hetland Scholarship, a one-time and/or renewing award of between $1,000 to $2,500 to a student who identifies as belonging to the global majority, and will attend an accredited 2- or 4-year college or university and has a history of community service. Preference is given to a student who is the first in their family to attend college. You can donate by check and just put community plate in the memo line if you would like to donate to that fund. You can also donate online. And so now we will collect today's offering. It will be collected and gratefully received. If this is your first time here, please let the collection plate pass you by. This service is our gift to you, and your presence is a gift to us.
For the gifts of your time, your presence, your talent, and your resources, we are indeed grateful this day. And now, as we prepare to close this time together, I invite you for an embodied time of closing words. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit. The words will be above. So as we close, we always have two elements. We have the closing song, and we have the postlude. And as we sing the closing song, remember, this is a blessing. Look around and bless each other.
And as we sing the postlude, one way to lead with love is to sing along with the chorus, and the words will be on the screen.
Choir. Go in love and peace, friends. We'll see you in Sandberg Hall.